Alright guys, so OTAs and minicamp are officially over for the Green Bay Packers, and now we enter a little bit of a dead zone of the offseason, just over a month until the start of training camp on July 22nd. So in this video, I want to go over the biggest takeaways from all of OTAs, all of minicamp, and all the headlines that came out of it. What players have been performing well, performing poor, how have the rookies looked, and talk about how this defense has looked. This new Jeff Hafley Green Bay Packers defense that we're all very, very excited for. Quickly, before we dive into the video, I want to give a massive shout out to today's video sponsor, Sleeper. And right now on Sleeper, you can get a first-time deposit match up to $100 with code BASS, B-A-S. The link is down in the description. Meaning, if you were to deposit $50, you'd then have $100 to play with. The NBA Finals continue tonight, and although it doesn't look too great for the Dallas Mavericks, you can still make your picks. Simply choose higher or lower on any given stat, points, rebounds, assists. Choose between 2 to 8 players. You can also include other sports into your picks. You can play anytime. Super easy and clean app to use. And the greatest thing of all is you can win up to 100x payouts. So guys, I'd love it if you went and checked Sleeper out with the link down in the description. Use code BASS for your first time deposit and get that matched up to $100. Supporting the sponsors of this channel is supporting the channel and allows me to do the thing that I love. Talk the Green Bay Packers and give you guys awesome content. So again, thank you to Sleeper for sponsoring this video. All right, so now let's dive right into the video. And firstly, I'm going to go over a couple headlines leaving OTAs and minicamps, and that's 2 potential extensions for 2 very important Green Bay Packers. First, we should expect a Jordan Love extension soon, and I know we keep saying that, and then other quarterbacks keep getting paid, but according to Jordan Love, it is quote-unquote what he's heard in terms of getting an extension before training camp. Gutekunst also went on record and said, quote, "We'd like to get this done before training camp, for sure." So, seems like both camps are on the same page. Get an extension for Jordan Love before training camp. Now, what that will cost is another question. We saw Trevor Lawrence extend with the Jacksonville Jaguars last night, 5 years, $275 million, $55 million per year. And if I were to choose between the two, I would choose Jordan Love. I think he's a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. So at this point, are you paying Jordan Love $60 million per year? This number just keeps going up and up and up. Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence now tied for the most annually at $55 million. Dak Prescott looking for an extension. I think you probably got to get that done before him. But likely Jordan Love will beat both of these marks, which I know it's a ton of money, but he is the future of the Green Bay Packers, and he's our best shot at bringing the Lombardi home to Green Bay. The other player to expect an extension with is Kenny Clark. Soon, but most likely, most definitely after Jordan Love. Clark said, quote, "There's been talks. It's still ongoing, but they're talking though. I love the organization. Hopefully everything will work out." Then Brian Gutekunst, when asked about Kenny Clark, said, quote, "We'd love to keep Kenny around. We'll see how that goes here moving forward. I think that's something as we go forward here, we're looking to see if we can do. It's all got to fit, and certainly Jordan's contract, getting that done and kind of knowing how it's structured and how it sits over the next few years will be important. But Kenny is still playing at a very high level and one of our team leaders. We'd certainly like to have him around for a number of years." It's not often that a player gets a third contract with the Green Bay Packers, but it's also not often that the third contract falls before the player turns 30 years old. So Kenny Clark's still in his prime, and I think he's about to have his best season as a pro, switching to this 4-3 scheme that just suits him so much better. So I think the Packers have to get this done, but I think it's more so a domino effect. All right, extend Jordan Love, then we can go and look at the Kenny Clark extension based on how the salary cap lays out. Right now, his cap hit is the highest on the team, and he has void years added on that, so that all plays a factor into his new extension. But I do believe the Packers and Russ Ball get both of these done very, very soon. Probably Jordan Love before training camp. Maybe Kenny Clark's extends maybe more towards week 1, but I'm really hoping it gets done before week 1. All right, so now let's go over the main things that we learned during Green Bay Packers, OTAs, and minicamp. Now, this was just 5 practices that were open to the media. 3 OTA sessions, 1 a week, and then 2 minicamp practices, the only 2 that they had. They also had a team building session as the 3rd day. So these are in no order, but first I have that the Packers are pretty much trying every O-line combination possible and truly finding the best 5 for their offensive line, which is a term that's kind of always been a Green Bay Packer thing, finding the best five. It's a football thing, but more so the Packers because they cross-train so many guys. They draft so many versatile linemen that can play different spots that it truly is about finding the best five. Now, throughout OTAs and minicamp, there's been no Zach Tom, which I wish he at least practiced a couple times because I wanted to see if they'd give him some reps at center. Like we heard earlier this offseason that they see him as a Hall of Fame center, but we've yet to see that take place yet. I'm not sure if it will. Josh Myers played just center throughout OTAs and minicamp and started there pretty much every time, so they still have their trust in him. But in terms of different offensive line combinations, through the 5 practices that were open, we saw 4 different combinations. Andre Dillard got starting reps at both left tackle and right tackle, but has struggled a decent bit, and that's to no one's surprise. The guy was one of the worst tackles on the Tennessee Titans last year, and I think is a good depth piece, but maybe would be better sliding into guard. But he's gotten a lot of reps, and it seems like the Packers at least want to see what they have with him before making a final decision or throwing, say, Jordan Morgan into stardom. And speaking of Morgan, he had reps at all 4 positions outside of center. He had starting reps at right tackle, right guard, and had second team reps at left tackle. But Jordan Morgan has also struggled during OTAs and minicamp. And guys, don't overreact. This is normal. The pads haven't even came on, which we need to wait for that to really start seeing this offensive line shape out. He's a rookie. This happens. The Packers draft rookies that may need a little bit more work in the front end, but in the long run, turn out to be great players. You saw it happen with Rashawn Gary. Morgan has mainly struggled with penalties, false start penalties. It has been an ongoing theme throughout OTAs and minicamp, and that makes sense that Matt LaFleur said, quote, mentally he has a long way to go. That's likely referring to a lot of the penalties or some just mental mistakes that he's making, but the ceiling is very high for Jordan Morgan. Will he be a starter week 1? Probably not based off of what we've seen so far, but will he potentially end up being a starter by season end? I think so. Will that be at guard or will that be at tackle? It just really depends how the rest of the offensive line shapes out. Also, the Packers are very clearly confident in Sean Rhyan. He's gotten mostly all the starting reps at right guard, just building off last year where he saw split snaps with John Runyon. And then, as I mentioned, Myers pretty much locked in at center. But again, we haven't seen Zach Tom yet, so we got to wait for that as well. But he pretty much got all reps at center 1, although there was some interesting reps where Elton Jenkins and Sean Rhyan got some reps at center. That Sean Rhyan is obviously a new one at center. We've seen Elton Jenkins play center before, but it seems like they're trying to, again, cross-train, but Jacob Monk was the main center number 2. The next key takeaway I have from OTAs and minicamp is that quarterback number 2 is completely up for grabs right now. The quarterback competition really started to heat up as we entered into minicamp. Clifford has been quarterback 2 this entire offseason. He's taking reps with the second team this entire time, and that hasn't changed. But 7th round rookie Michael Pratt out of Tulane out of this year's draft has looked impressive. Pratt has been in control, firing the football, looking good with the third team, and has showcased leadership that you normally don't see from a rookie, nonetheless a 7th round rookie. And on the flip side, most recently, Sean Clifford has been struggling pretty heavily. It wasn't too much of a headline during OTAs. Like, he didn't do anything amazing. He didn't do anything too bad. But it really started to take a turn for the worst during minicamp, where the first day of minicamp, Sean Clifford had 3 interceptions, all of which to Zane Anderson, which is crazy, right? This guy doesn't even exist in some people's minds and was the worst graded defender on the Packers last season. Shout out to Zane for getting 3 interceptions in a practice, but it says more about Sean Clifford than it does Zane. And then the second day, he had another interception thrown to Robert Rochelle, and he also hasn't scored during the 2-minute drill. And at the end of the day, the Packers could end up keeping only 2 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. My guess still right now is that they keep 3 because I don't think they want to lose either of these guys. They spent draft capital on them, and I think if you were to put either Pratt on the practice squad due to the potential or Clifford on the practice squad due to the draft pick you spent, another team would definitely snag them off your practice squad, in my opinion. So overall, I still think they keep 3, but that quarterback number 2 on the depth chart in terms of that, completely up for grabs. It's going to be an awesome battle during training camp, but so far, in my opinion, Michael Pratt has the edge. The next takeaway is about this new Green Bay Packers defense, and they've already been showcasing a lot more aggressiveness. And this is something we've been talking about as Packers fans for, it seems like, a decade at this point. Over a decade, that this defense needs to be more aggressive. We need to stop with the bend but don't break style of defense and really just be aggressive and kind of try to set the tone And it seems like that's finally starting to happen under Jeff Hafley. There's been more man coverage. There's been more unique blitz packages, which I love because it seems like under Joe Barry, we could all pre-snap diagnose who's coming after the quarterback, and it was very easy to do. It was very vanilla. So if I could do it, if we could do it as fans, then the offensive coordinator knows exactly the types of pressures Joe Barry was bringing. So I'm so glad that they're utilizing different types of pressure packages, different players in different spots, and overall the edge players throughout OTAs and minicamp have been getting home in this new 4-3 scheme, which makes sense. Put your hand in the dirt, get after the passer. Stop dropping these guys like Preston Smith in coverage to cover up Justin Jefferson out of the slot. No, you don't do that. Preston Smith is a hand in the dirt, defensive end, stop the run, contain the edge, get after the passer, and that's what he's been doing, and he went on record saying he's so glad that that's the case now. There's also been some very interesting personnel packages on the defense that we've seen so far, including Preston Smith moving inside to defensive tackle and putting Quay Walker on the edge, which, when Quay Walker was drafted out of Georgia, I went under the assumption that this guy could get some edge reps and could rush the passer. So it's cool to see that they're trying to utilize players' skill sets in different ways. They did the same thing with Edgerrin Cooper. He's been on the edge rushing the passer as well and has gotten some decent amount of pressure on the quarterback. Colby Wooden has had some reps at defensive end. We know he's like a 300-pound defensive lineman, so that's more so, hey, it's early down. We want to stop the run. Let's get our big guys down on the defensive line and stop this run. And then also they've been sending defensive back pressure at the quarterback. All of the defensive backs we drafted can get after the quarterback as well. Javon Bullard had 3 sacks in 2022. Katana Oladapo and Evan Williams both sacked Caleb Williams. There's a trend there. They're going to be playing them twice a year. And I think all of these defensive backs can create pressure on the quarterback and can just do so much. They can simply run and hit. Also, the defense has won most practices. Basically, during 2-minute drills, they stopped the offense from scoring a touchdown most of the time, which is a good thing in my opinion because we know what we have with the offense. The defense was the biggest question mark. So that was the biggest question mark heading into these offseasons. So we want to see the defense progress. We want to see the defense succeed because we know what we have with the offense. Not much has really changed on the offense outside of Josh Jacobs' switch for Aaron Jones, which in my opinion makes them better. And the other draft picks that they made, which again, I think makes them better. The next key takeaway I have is that it's the veterans' job to lose right now. The Packers have been starting a lot of their veterans. And I say veteran very lightly because Preston Smith is the only player above 30 years old on this roster at 31, which is insane that how young this team is. And you can consider second-year player, third-year player as a veteran right now. But the Packers tend to do this early offseason. They put their veterans in, let them get the first-team snaps, and the rookies have to earn it. But that doesn't mean the rookies won't carve out a starting role come training camp. Some examples of this. Eric Wilson has been at starting linebacker over Edgerrin Cooper with the other two of Quay Walker and Isaiah McDuffie. Andre Dillard has been mainly starting over Jordan Morgan. Anthony Johnson Jr. has been starting at safety next to McKinney over someone like Javon Bullard. The next two, not too shocking. Eric Stokes over Carrington Valentine. That one's not too shocking. You know how much the Packers love Eric Stokes when healthy. And then A.J. Dillon over Marshawn Lloyd. That could change, but A.J. Dillon's been looking great so far. The next takeaway I have from OTAs and minicamp is the layout at linebacker. I just talked about it with Eric Wilson. You have inherently more off-ball linebackers in a base defense. Now, the Packers won't be running base a ton, but nonetheless, they're going to be running it. So who those starting 3 linebackers will be has been a question all offseason, and we needed to see who started to line up there for OTAs and minicamp, and the entire time, it was Eric Wilson, Quay Walker, and Isaiah McDuffie. So Eric Wilson got first-team reps the entire time, and honestly, he's looked great. He's impressed a lot during OTAs and minicamp, which is awesome. It's great to have that depth, but at the same time, I don't think there's any way Edgerrin Cooper ends up not on the field. I think this guy is way too talented, and he has been subbing in with the first team for Eric Wilson and Isaiah McDuffie. But this guy is just way too talented. And I think in a nickel look, it still will be Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper. I think that's kind of the format that we'll end up seeing as the season starts. He's had stops in the backfield on players like Josh Jacobs. He's had pressure on the quarterback. Edgerrin Cooper, just a very athletic, fast, and explosive linebacker that deserves to be on the field. Another big takeaway was that new linebacker coach, Anthony Campanile, has been amazing. I've seen so many clips of this guy's energy, and he brings it every single rep, and he wants the same from his players. 110% from all linebackers, every single rep, and he'll make that known. And I love that so far. He's bringing the fire and aggressiveness that's needed to play the linebacker position, something that I feel like we've been missing for a decent time now. Then finally, their third round pick, Tyron Hopper, has been rotating in with the second team and whatnot, but no real first team reps so far. But this is to be expected with him year one, in my opinion. The final takeaway I have from OTAs and minicamp is that this wide receiver room is stacked. Just over 2 years ago, wide receiver is one of the biggest needs for the Green Bay Packers. Then they went and traded up for Christian Watson, selected Romeo Doubs, selected Samori Toure. Then the next year, Jaden Reed, Tay Wicks, Grant DuBose, signing Malik Heath undrafted, signing Bo Melton to their practice squad. It went from one of their weakest rooms to one of their strongest rooms. And Brian Gutekunst needs to be commended for that, because the turnaround in this wide receiver room has been insane. Right now, they have 5 to 6 very, very capable wide receivers. And one of the arguments has been, oh, they don't have a true number one wide receiver. I don't care. Personally, I do not care. I'd rather have 4 to 5 number 2 guys that any given Sunday can step up and drop 120 and 2 touchdowns on your head, because literally all 5 to 6 of those guys could, maybe outside of Malik Heath. The other 5 definitely could and have. During offseason, even Julian Hicks and Dimitri Stanley have impressed, 2 undrafted guys from this offseason. Matt LaFleur stated that Romeo Doubs has had an amazing offseason so far. Christian Watson seemingly figured out his lower leg injuries. We'll see what happens and if he can stay healthy through training camp into the regular season. But a long story short, there was an imbalance in strength in one of his legs by 20%, and that's why he was injuring the weaker one. He got that down to 12%. He's trying to get it around 8 to 9%, and hopefully that is a fix for him. Very, very excited for year 2 of Jaden Reed and Tay Wicks. I mean, these guys are probably my 2 favorite receivers on the team. I think Tay Wicks is overall my favorite player on the Packers right now, just because I love the craft of wide receiver. And what this guy does at the wide receiver position, man, it's an absolute art. And I haven't seen something like that since Davante Adams. And the hype is very, very real for Tay Wicks. I think this guy could end up actually being the number 1 wide receiver in the Green Bay Packers in years to come. And then Jaden Reed has just been a joy to watch out of the slot. Just such a great weapon to have out of the slot, out of the backfield, as a motion man, handing the ball off to him. We saw it all last year, and he's going to build off that here in year 2. Bo Melton is probably the best number 5 wide receiver in the NFL by far. Like, this guy could start on a lot of teams as the number 2, number 3 wide receiver without a doubt. And then Malik Heath. He's a great role player. He can come in and start when needed and get a couple catches, block a defensive back into oblivion on a run play, and contribute on special teams. So to me, those are the 6 wide receivers that are locks on this roster, and I'm very comfortable with all 6. So that does it for all the key headlines, takeaways, notes I have from OTAs and minicamp. Again, training camp starts July 22nd, so a little bit of a dead zone here, but content never stops. I'll still be posting a ton of off-season content for the Green Bay Packers here on this channel. So if that does interest you and you want to stay in the loop with everything Packers, go down and click that subscribe button. But I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Pack Go.